All right, good morning, folks. Welcome to today's workshop. I'm showing 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this workshop session into order. And as usual, colleagues and superintendent, we'll just go through every item, and if there's anything that y'all want to talk about or have questions about, please just stop me, because sometimes I've been told that I go a little fast. So, but anyway, y'all know what to do to stop that. All right, so of course the first item is called to order. Second item is the approval of the agenda. And I would like to point out that on item 7.11, there have been some adjustments to the contract, and the new contract, same topic, is attached to that item at this time. Okay? All right, so then that takes us down to recognitions. 3.1 will be the recognition of the winners of the Pedestrian Safety Poster Contest held by Healthy Communities Okaloosa County Health Improvement Partnership, presented by Superintendent Chambers. And then 3.2, Proclamation of National Educational Support Professionals Day, presented by Superintendent Chambers. Section 4, there are no appointments at this time. Section 5, public comment. We'll have to wait until this evening. Section 6, there are no staff reports at this time, and that takes us to consent agenda. And then 7.1 will be the approval. 7.2 is a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of the workshop meeting of October 28, 2024, minutes of the regular meeting October 28, 2024, all recommended by the superintendent. 7.3 is the appropriation of District 4 School Board member capital outlay funds to Laurel Hill School for weight room equipment in the amount of $25,251, presented by Mr. Bryant and recommended by the superintendent.
Dr. White,
Yes,
can
sir.
I comment on that
Yes,
particular
sir.
item? So last year at Crestview High School, we had Mr. Chambers and myself, we were part of his town hall meetings that he does with all the high schools. And Laurel Hill School, some of their students were asking about why, you know, their weight room seems to always be like the hand-me-down weight room. And I know Mr. Chambers and myself, we just kind of, you know, listened to them. And what they didn't know is that over the past couple of years, I've kind of set money aside to help them with the new weight room. And then when we were at Baker School a couple of weeks ago to see their incredible new weight room, I knew we weren't going to get it to that level, but I'm happy to say that this weight equipment is going to be great for them. And if you've ever been into their weight room, it's not a very big weight room, but their equipment is probably about as old as the school. So I'm really excited that that we're going to approve this for them and help them with their athletic program up there with this new weight equipment. So
That's awesome, Mr. Bryan. And Superintendent, you might want to speak about how these weight rooms are used during the day at PE and by boys and all that stuff.
No, I'll tell you, when you look at the weight rooms across the district during the day, especially at the high school, but the middle schools as well, we have classes that go in that learn about proper weight lifting techniques all the way to competitive weight lifting. But you'll see classes full of students during the day. And then, of course, after school, you look at all the different programs that we have, and the girls' programs, the boys' programs, and we do a good job in our school district of really emphasizing the strength training programs. So this is a area of the school that is busy from the very first period of the day all the way to the nighttime.
Mr. Chambers, I'm glad you mentioned girls also, because we did think of weightlifting as a boys' sport.
That's right.
But now our girls are just as strong, if not stronger, I think, in the weightlifting.
Pound for
So
pound.
that is yes.
right, and that's my hope by approving this equipment, is that Laurel Hill has a very small athletic program because they have a small student population up there. But if you see what's happened at Baker, they have become a force to be reckoned with when it comes to weightlifting. And maybe this would be an opportunity for some students up at Laurel Hill to be able to get into a weightlifting program to where they can compete in weightlifting throughout the state and the county.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So that brings us to 7.4, the approval to name the new K-8 school in Crestview, presented by Ms. Evancheck and recommended by the superintendent.
Yes, Dr. White.
Yes, ma'am.
I see this as such a historic moment and for our district that I would like to ask the board to move this item to discussion agenda, because I think it deserves a little bit more than being in the consent and just kind of a gavel down. And so if we could get that moved to discussion for tonight and have a separate vote, I would appreciate that.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. Ms. Mary, can you take care of that for us? Okay, so we'll move 7.4 to discussion tonight, and that will be a separate motion and a
So we
separate
have to
vote.
wait till tonight to find out the name? No,
This is the one.
No, I won't spoil the surprise,
Well,
but I've been
I don't,
eagerly.
yeah, because I have a little talk, but I mean, I can tell you later if you want to know. I mean, that's fine. But this is a big deal. I mean, I never
It is
even thought that I
Exactly.
would be able to be, or our board be able to vote towards a name for a new school. So I think it's a big deal. So if we move it to discussion tonight, then, and that would allow all of you to
Yeah.
maybe make a remark as well
Yeah.
about what you think about it.
Well, I'm gonna make a recommendation that, Ms. Gardner, you get that information from the superintendent.
Okay.
This is,
Yes.
I think it's a voting item.
It is a
Yes,
voting
that's
So,
right. So we'll have to do
we'll,
that.
any of that, you don't have to get it from him if he'll give it up.
Right.
'Cause he hasn't done that yet, that I know of.
He's in arm's length reach, so I can,
All right,
We are letting the anticipation build.
That's right, that's right. Let's go.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, so you know what'll happen now. This will move down to discussion for this evening. Okay, so 7.5, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of revised school board policy 06-08, complaints relating to employees, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. All right, 7.6, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of revised school board policy 06-26, equity policy prohibiting discrimination, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 7.7, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of revised school board policy 06-27, equity policy prohibiting harassment on the basis of race, color, national or ethnic origin, sex, age, religious beliefs, marital status, pregnancy, or disability, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 7.8, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of revised school board policy 06-28, reporting violations of equity policies prohibiting discrimination and harassment, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent.
Dr. White, I have a
Yes, sir.
question for our attorney regarding these last 4 items.
Yep.
Are these legislative changes to the policy? Is this?
These changes are all in the same area. They are addressing the issue of false claims and how that might affect someone who makes a false accusation in one of these matters.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And Dr. White, if you don't mind.
sir.
And I would say, these false claims could be employee to employee, but it also could be a false claim of a student against an employee. And so this puts just even a little bit more emphasis in terms of what we do here and making sure that employees are taken care of the right way. And we have processes, as you know, that we go through, investigative processes. But when false claims are made and factually made that it's false, then this is policy to support whatever actions would be taken.
All right, sir. All right, thank you, Superintendent. All right, 7.9, invoices to be approved for payment by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.10, school donations presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.11, investment advisory services portfolio management agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and FAI Capital Management Incorporated, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent for approval. And this is the item that I referenced to you earlier, that there's some changes to the contract that has been posted. 7.12, tag on bid purchase over $50,000 to Train, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.13, Service Agreement Number 25-95 QBS LLC, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.14, Renewal of Fuel Purchasing Agreement between Okaloosa Academy and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.15, Renewal of Fuel Purchasing Agreement between Liza Jackson Preparatory School and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the Superintendent. And then 7.16, Memorandum of Understanding between the Consulate General of Italy in Miami and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Ms. Brooke Barron, Director 1, Curriculum and Instruction, and recommended by the Superintendent. And so, folks, that takes us through the consent agenda and now brings us to the Superintendent's business regarding human relations. 8.1, Information Only, Employees on Administrative Leave. 8.2, Information Only, Deferred Retirement Option Program, both presented by Dr. Hale, Assistant Superintendent. And then 8.3, Employment Separations, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.4, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.5, Employee Transfers, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. And then 8.6, Leave Without Pay, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. On Section 9, Discussion Agenda, we do have one item moved there. Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business, and 10.1 is a status report by our representative, Mr. Bryant.
And we do have a meeting right after our workshop, so I'll have something for tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. And then 10.2, Jacobs Titan Capital Outlay Program Number 6, Partial Shared Savings on Task Orders Number 15, Number 17, Number 20, and Number 21, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the Superintendent. 10.3, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 44, Scope Mod Number 1, Pre-GMP for 24-25 Priority Roofing Projects, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the Superintendent. All right, bringing us to Section 11. Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
No report this morning.
Thank you, sir. Section 12, Superintendent's business. Of course, we have the customary out-of-state student field trip request. And that brings us to 10.2, anything the superintendent may wish to bring to us. Super?
Thank you, Dr. White and School Board. I do have a number of different announcements that I'd like to discuss, as well as we're going to have a few presentations after my remarks. I do want to start off by saying, in my mind, I believe that we're in what I would call some of the finest times of public education and some of the most difficult times of public education. And I think what our teachers do, what our educational support professionals do, and what our administrators and district staff, what they do, is nothing short of miraculous. And you look at what public education looks like post-pandemic, it's a completely different environment. And I always say that where we live in Okaloosa, you know, we are so grateful for our military, for police, firefighters, EMS, those first responders. And we've often said post-pandemic, and I probably would even say pre-pandemic, that educators are amongst first responders, especially to students and families in terms of what they do. And as you know, this board supported an action that's going to come forth in an upcoming paycheck. And that's going to be a $500 bonus for all the employees in our school district. And is a $500 bonus enough to show the true appreciation for what they do? No, but it is a showing of our appreciation for what they do. So just could not be more grateful to the employees of our school district. Do want to say that as the holiday season is, I'll say, upon us, and for Thanksgiving and Christmas, this is just a reminder, our Thanksgiving meals program, this year 154 families will receive Thanksgiving meals. That's up from the previous year. I do want to thank Jacobs Titan, Eglin Federal Credit Union, Florida Power and Light, the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation, Publix, as well as Forest Heights Baptist Church. All of these entities donated money so that way we could provide these meals for families. The schools have done a great job of identifying all the families, and then families will pick up those meals here at the district office. And then the partnership with the Sheriff's Department, with the Angel Tree Partnership, over 300 students will receive Christmas gifts during this holiday season that maybe wouldn't have otherwise. So, as you know, last year was the first time that we embarked upon this venture as a district. So the second time will be this year, but in partnership with the Sheriff's Department. So couldn't be more proud of that continued relationship. So I just appreciate Sheriff Eric Aiden for working with us in this venture. Tonight, you saw on the agenda, there's a pedestrian safety poster contest, and this is by the Healthy Communities Okaloosa County Health Improvement Partnership, and these are the different municipalities across Okaloosa County working together for pedestrian safety. If you remember a number of years back, we almost had a tragedy where one of our crosswalkers saved the lives of students. And so the pedestrian safety is important to us every single day. Students are coming to school. Many of them are walking or getting off the bus, or parents are dropping them off, but the pedestrian safety is important. This is a program that this entity has created, and we had over 194 submissions this year. And we have the committee's choice winner is Miss Daniel's class from Richburg School, which will be presented tonight. Khaleesi DeCondens from Laurel Hill School. I'm sure I didn't have that name correctly pronounced. Mackenzie Linger from Shoal River Middle School, and then Asher Guillory from Crestview High School. And then we also have, because all of our before and after school programs or daycare programs, many of them took part in this as well. And then Anthony McKinney will accept the first place award on behalf of Stepping Stones Early Learning Academy. So all of those came together for this program. We do have a recognition of celebrating AP Scholar Honor Roll recognition. Niceville High School and Fort Walton Beach High School have been named the 2024 College Board AP Scholar Honor Roll. So they've been recognized for that. So I think that's pretty significant. As you know, it's providing high quality education so our kids have the ability to go to college, the military, the workforce. This supports that initiative. This next one I'm so excited about, and this is the VR goggles. So you've seen where our students will play games on those, and our students are actually learning math and science on those. So this is the first year of its implementation. We have the VR goggles at Bruner, Pryor, Choctaw, and Davidson. And at the middle school level, it's for math, and the high school science. Mrs. Lightborn and her team strategically chose schools and strategically chose content areas. And some of those content areas are specific subject areas where we wanted to do even better. And so this is a support. The kids are already taking part in it. They're excited, they're engaged, and the teachers have been trained with these goggles. So if you think about algebra, geometry, biology, it's helping reinforce those concepts through a virtual reality. So just extremely proud that that's going, and you're going to see more about that. We're going to highlight that even more. But to see the smiles on the faces when they took pictures and sent them to me, it's pretty dynamic. All right, want to do a few presentations. Okay. As you know, Ms. Ivanchek and board, we have what I would believe to be one of the strongest public foundations. We have the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundations. And this year, our chair is Miss Cindy Gates. And so we have our representation, Mr. Spolsky from our school board. But Mr. Spolsky, if you'd come forward and introduce who's here, and you might also have a few words before the presentation.
Yes, sir, Superintendent. I appreciate it. Board, chair, good to see everyone. Friends, the foundation is no stranger to our community, to our district. And behind me, I'd like to invite up Ms. Cindy Gates, who also is no stranger to this group. Cindy Gates is the president or the chair of the Okaloosa Public School Foundation. I serve as the executive director. And also we have some supporters here with us. We have Ms. Debbie Tate and Ms. Judy Byrne-Riley, and they are really movers and shakers when it comes to our foundation. So at this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to Ms. Cindy Gates so she can give us a few words about how important our foundation is in supporting our mission and supporting our students and our families. Not only our families, but also our employees, our teachers, and our administrators out there. It takes a lot of us together to keep us moving in the right direction and growing each week, each month, each year. And I'm so proud to be a part of the foundation and be behind the scenes trying to support that. So, Ms. Gates?
Welcome, Ms. Gates, and with your friends that are with you.
Yeah, welcome back.
Yes, it is awesome to be standing here in front of you, still talking about something that I'm very passionate about, which is the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation. And you guys have helped us and supported us to grow into a group that are 24 incredible people that I'm going to talk to you about. And what we've been doing since this time last year, since I think Mr. Horton and Miss Maggie Tomachek was a part of that last year. But thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this time. And I love being back at the district office for this morning.
Looks a little bit different, doesn't it?
It does. Can't find my way around. But so who's the you can play. Okay, so go back to the mission. I'm sorry, John. Go back to me. So I'm not going to stand up here and read a bunch of slides to you. I'm going to tell you a few stories and give you some numbers that I think are important because it is about growth, and we are growing. But our mission specifically, I think most of you are aware and have worked with us, but I just want to read this part. The Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to serving as a catalyst to promote excellence in Okaloosa schools, enhancing teaching and learning through community and private sector support for special programs. That is our mission. Now we're going to talk about who we are. There are 24 people's names. I will not read all of them to you, but I will say Miss Ivanchek is, and she may want to follow up with a comment or two, but she represents the school board on our board, and we appreciate that so much. Miss Judy Byrne-Riley, she has been actively involved in the Public Schools Foundation for many years, and we appreciate you being here, Judy. We cannot do any of this without Debbie Tate. She does a phenomenal job of keeping us all together, and she's incredible at doing 20 things at one time. And I think 20 is probably about average for Debbie. So as we go through, I'll say a little bit more about them. But again, I'm not going to list. What I want you to know about the board is years ago when it started, it was huge. And we were serving all kinds of students, and we had 30 people that would be there every month. I mean, they would come. And we got down to some very strong 8 or 9 board members that said, okay, we have to pick this up. And we have to get our membership, and we have to serve more students, give out more scholarships and more teacher grants. So we went on the hunt. and you can see by the names of these people and what they do for a living that this is a working board. So they do get lunch when they come to eat, and our school provides that. But they're a working board, and when they go out to their community groups, and they may take one of us with them, then we are represented throughout Okaloosa County well. People do know who we are, and we have grown. We have almost everybody there at every board meeting, and everybody trying to contribute and participate and help. And without these people and without being out in the community, learning these people, introducing ourselves and what we do, there would be no Public Schools Foundation board. So I think they're awesome and appreciate their time and efforts. I do want to say thank you to Mr. Chambers. We have, and to the school board, we have to have that support, or we cannot function without the support and the love from you guys. So we do have Mr. Spolsky, who you guys all know, who is our executive director. Then Debbie Tate, who's our support person for the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation. We also have two ladies that are hired through the Take Stock program, Christy Evans and Lori Lipnicki, and they are in high schools every day. Every day. They are coaching kids for college success. They're working with teachers to help get tutors for kids. So they are a huge support system. And then we also have people from the district that have been made a commitment to help us. So Mr. McGinnis is our attorney also, and attends our meetings and guides us on any kind of legal stuff. And Melissa O'Malley is our finance support, and oh my goodness, there's a lot of money and a lot of grants and stuff going in and out. And if we didn't have that support from finance, it would be Judy Byrne Riley doing that. But, and then Paul McNeely and Hillary for their technology support. So you have, I don't know if things are falling or so we're quickly going to talk about Take Stock in Children, because really Take Stock is the reason the Public Schools Foundation Board was ever originated, was because of the Take Stock program. And this, you can see, was at the end of last year for these numbers, because we won't have the numbers until the spring for this year. But I want to share with you that we do have, instead of 62, 64 students in the program, and that's 9 through 12, so 64 active mentors. I can look at you guys and know that many of you have mentored. When I talk to parents about that scholarship that their students are getting in the 8th grade, if they do this, and that, one of those things is to meet with a mentor regularly. And I believe they love the money, but what happens is the relationships that are formed with the mentors and their students and their teachers and their parents is what brings everything together for a successful student to move on to college or a technical school. So we really want to grow that. We want more kids to be served, because we have the students, but we have to raise money. And, we're matched by the Florida prepaid. So we raise money, they match it. We like doing that, but we have some really lofty goals as far as increasing the number of students that are being served, because we know that we have more. You can see that they logged over 750 mentor sessions last year. And the donations that we had received last year was the $31,350. Now, I'm going to tell you, all of that's looking better, even right now, and this is much better than the previous year. We also oversee the volunteers and kids that need volunteers, and making sure the volunteers get all their paperwork and get approved to go into the schools to help in a lot of different ways. What I love one of the things I love the most about our giving is that teachers last year, our employees gave over $27,000 last year. So it may be $1 out of their check each month, or it may be $5, or it may be $25. But our teachers love and support the foundation and and know the students are getting some financial help that they wouldn't get if we didn't have this program. We do some fun events, barbecue and bingo. You can see that $9,000. We think that we haven't got everything sorted out, but we believe we're going to be close to doubling that money for that night, and that all goes towards Take Scholar and the scholarships for kids. So we have a pickleball tournament that we had last year. Will be coming up in the spring, and you can see it was $19,000 last year. So these fundraising events and our board, when I say they're a working board, those events don't happen without the board working and helping us make those happen. We do Stuff the Bus every year, and that's thousands of dollars that goes into helping kids be ready for school. So when we talk about our foundation, I always say we are like a wraparound service. We want to make sure that there's tutoring, there's mentoring, there's information on college or other kinds of technical schools. We provide teachers with grants. This year, I think, Debbie, you just told me that it was going to be close to $90,000 in grants. So we get matching money. So we have half of that, and then we get the match money. But that's a lot of money for teachers and principals to be able to apply for grants, and that has substantially gone up each year. And the teachers are doing incredible things with the information, with the resources that they get. There's a list of current grants. There's some ways that we support the district, and I think that's so important. When Mr. Chambers has an initiative, we figure it out, and we take that initiative and try to use that information of what's happening. Because when we go out, we're always representing not just the foundation, but the school district, and we want everybody to know that part of what's going on. We support the Teacher of the Year and Ed Support Professional each year with goodie bags, with going out to get some extra treats for them, being there to support them. We believe that's important. We get Books of Millions, we get books, we have robotics teams and science fairs. We also have support the CTE summer camps. So there's a lot of things that you might not know that's going on that we actually have our hands in, because we can write a grant or help somebody get a grant, and then we can get it matched through the state through our program. So some of those things you might not realize it's out there. College and Career Fair, we did have done this for about 5 years, and it's always been important to us. It became important to the state, and so again, we were trying to make sure what we were doing would support the initiative for every child or every junior and senior to be have access to a college and career fair. And the community has the numbers. We get bigger. We do them in different places. The one locally or centrally located is Beachside Community Church, but the numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger as far as the community people and colleges, and then the kids that are attending. We do financial literacy. We have already talked about the classroom grants, and that was last year. So you see that we are going to be given around $90,000 this year in those grants, and then a couple of different grants there at the bottom. So it's about finding kids who work hard and want to go to college, but they don't have the parents maybe sitting at their table talking to them about the way when I was growing up. But they do now have a wraparound support group of that mentor, college success coach, and then our program providing tutoring and anything they need for SAT, ACT, any of those things. So it's about take stock. It's about helping our teachers be able to do what they want to do in their classrooms that they might not have the money for. It's about students who are getting ready to come to school and making sure that we're doing everything for those little guys that would be coming into school so that they would be successful. So scholarships, grants, it's really about kids. So we have so many stories, and if you're a mentor, you have stories also. And I always tell all the kids that I am honored to mentor that they make me a better person. That when I leave there, I feel really good about what's going on and what I'm still doing to stay connected to kids in the schools. So the mentoring piece is key. So we love to have you at any of our fundraisers, at anything that we're doing special. We hand out those grants. You'll see us at Teacher of the Year. Again, if you have questions, please get with John, Debbie, or I, and we can go more in depth, because what I want you to know is we're growing. What I want you to know that kids are smiling when we walk into, I'll be sitting there, and actually Mr. Horton is still mentoring a young man over at Choctaw, and he hadn't seen him in a few weeks. His face lit up. I was sitting with my mentor, and she goes, that kid was really excited to see that man. She didn't know any of them. And I said, he was. And he was. I just know that what we're doing we're going in the right direction. We can't do it without you. We also, a tad bit, that we are very involved in the CTE program. And we had the first career fair at an elementary school last year at Elliott Point, and I'm meeting with Debbie and I are meeting with Mr. Nuss, I think next Monday morning, to plan the one for this year. So elementary kids can go to a job fair, a career fair. So, any questions?
Anything? Anybody?
I just have one.
Yeah, sure.
So, I think my microphone's on. Another way people can get involved with the school's foundation is get a license plate to support education.
Absolutely.
So, and they have two different kinds. So they got a cool one and a, not so cool one, but.
And thank you for bringing that up, because that's just almost like a no-brainer. We should all
Right,
have
right.
one, and we do get money from
Yeah.
for
I obviously have the cool one, so.
Absolutely, Mr. Ryan. We don't have any of them. And Miss Ivanchek does a great job. I know I've been here at board meetings, so she does a great job, I know, keeping you guys up to date, so I appreciate that very much. And her time that she gives to us. Is there anything that you would like to add?
I think you've covered it, but it's been a privilege to be on that foundation board, because, and I'm glad to see you here today, because, in those meetings I go, y'all need to come before the board and tell them everything, because I only get so much time. And then, of course, at almost every meeting I mention something about the foundation. And I just think it's just such a wonderful asset to this school district. And like you said, all the things they're doing. And I only see it continuing to grow and to just become continue to be a vital part of what we're doing. And so I'm just so glad that you're here today to speak to the board, because I think sometimes they tune me out. I don't know. I don't get it. But this way they can hear it from you. So thank you.
No. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here.
Well, thank you, Ms. Gates and Ms. Tate and Ms. Judy. I'll just say that Ms. Judy's been a long time real supporter of the public schools, and we certainly appreciate you, Ms. Judy and Ms. Tate and Ms. Gates, for everything that you've done for all these kids, all these years. It's marvelous. Thank you.
And Dr. White, can I just
Yes, ma'am.
say,
Sure.
and Ms. Gates, you made a comment about how the mentoring makes me a better person. And I'm mentoring right now. I picked up a little girl. I call her my girl. She's become my girl. I picked her up as a 9th grader, and she's now an 11th grader. And you are so right that now when I see her, I know the first time I started mentoring with her, that 30 minutes seemed to last forever. And now I have to set my phone, because we start talking, she's sharing things, she just lights up. That a couple of times she's been late to her next class because we're talking so much. But I just encourage everyone to become a mentor. I see the difference. I see how she lights up. She can just sit and just come and talk to me. And we talk about what's the fashion of the time, and we talk about what classes she needs to take, and just she's become my girl. And I just strongly encourage and thank you for that mentor part of this program. It really does make a difference. My girl.
I just wanted to take this opportunity as one of the board members to thank you all for the support. I know I speak for all of them, and all of us are involved. We're givers, we're mentors. Many of us are mentors. Some of us take stock in children's scholarships that we fund. And I don't know why I didn't see all of you at the bingo and burger barbecue, but I'm always a fundraiser, as some of you know, so I won't be shy. I may be calling all of you next
Sure.
time, or play pickleball. But thank you very much for the support you give us. It's really critical, and I hope you'll read all the figures that are in these papers, because we need to get our light out a little bit better, which is why we're here this morning, and appreciate the opportunity, and let other people know how many things that we do for the schools. Thank you
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr.
I'll go ahead-
Spolsky.
I'll go ahead and close, just say thank you for this opportunity to share the great work that the foundation is doing. I'll continue the road trip. I've been visiting schools. Really, I will tell you, a lot of our teachers, administrators out there in our field give a little bit each month, and that helps. And what I'm telling them right now is, if you can't give right now, because the cost of everything else in the world, then just be a cheerleader for us. Be a catalyst. Be someone who can carry our torch, because we're doing so many great things. And I'm excited that Steve and Miss Cindy are mentoring. In fact, Mr. Bryan, I'm mentoring Chris at Crestview High School. I meet with him tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And I think it's not only valuable for Chris, but valuable for JS. It's a two-way street. So just appreciate your time this morning.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Spolsky. Superintendent.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate the update. And if you think about the growth of this foundation from several years back, from Mrs. Gates to Mr. Horton to Mr. Spolsky and all of those who work behind the scenes who do a great job building this program, and to just the number of community folks that's on the board, just couldn't be more grateful, because
Well,
students are the winners.
And I know the other board members, I'm sure, are aware of this. We almost lost our foundation. So when you talk about that, the reality is y'all turned it around and you brought it back. And
In a short time.
yeah,
in a very
very,
short
very grateful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, if you'd come forward, we're going to talk about the K-8 groundbreaking, and then Mr. Meyer is going to share the name of the school.
No, he's not.
Let's move that item back to consent.
Negative. I vote against that.
We can't vote today.
Good morning, Dr. White, board members. Bill and I, Dr. Smith and I want to just give a status update on where we're at with the new school. So just to fill you guys in, over the last couple months, our drawings were done. That is done by DAG, the architects in charge of that. Jacobs Titan is running point on that. There was a lot of work to go into a new school. This was new to me, coming from a principal. The amount of people that are involved with designing a new school, it's time consuming. It takes everybody that's working on that. But that went out, those drawings went out to bid, and the bid closed on October 31st. And we're proud to say that Lord & Son is going to be the construction manager for this project. The good thing is we have a long relationship with Lord & Son. We feel comfortable with that, and they'll do a fine job. I will say the time constraint, with less than 2 years to get this done, they got their work cut out, but everybody's on board, and we're going to get it done. We did come up with a date for the groundbreaking. We're looking at December 19th at 9 o'clock for all of us to be there, and Jacobs would be there, Lord & Son, and we do an official groundbreaking on the 19th. The land has been mostly cleared. They started a few weeks ago. They are moving quickly to get that property cleared. And just a reminder, there's 80 acres there, but we're clearing 40 for the new K-8, which I'm interested to hear about the new name this evening as well. There went a lot of work just to be able to get onto that site and to begin clearing that property. Dr. Smith has been instrumental in that, working with the county and the city. He's going to update us on a couple things, how we're getting to that property, because as you're aware, the new bypass is still being built. One side of that bypass is asphalted. We can get there, but now getting on the property, getting utilities to this site is still in the works. So, Dr. Smith.
Thank you. Even before we bought this property, we were aware that, obviously it was a brand new road. We were looking at utilities, so we reached out to the city of Crestview and got with them and talked to them about getting us the utilities that we needed to put the school there. It has been a very good relationship with them. You've already granted them an easement to put a water tank. That water tank has broken ground. That contract has been let. They will be entering the property from the power line side. They're going to come down the side of the road, turn and go in on easement that was approved by the board. And so probably in the next 4 or 5 months, you're going to see a water tank rising out of the ground on the southwest corner of the property. The good news for us is that's a water tank that will serve that complete area of the county, but it will also serve water and sewer water for us at really no cost. At Antioch, when we built Antioch Elementary School, we put in almost a mile of water line just to get fire protection and potable water to the site. This time we put not a single foot of water line in the ground. It's all there for us. It's ready for us to use, both fire protection and potable water. The same thing's going to happen with sewer. So by doing those two things, it's going to work out really well for us and at a huge savings.
Yeah. Wow.
So we can put that money toward the school.
Good job.
Thank you. And if you have any other questions, be glad to answer them.
I have a really important question. How do you get the school board member for that school out to that property without some kind of unusual vehicle that y'all were threatening me with?
The good news is there's been a temporary culvert put in now. Since we were there the last time, there's a temporary culvert. You can actually drive up in there now. So what you have to do is ask.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be some kind of army tank or something to get me in there like you were saying before.
Standard four-wheel drive pickup truck will do it now. It wouldn't have when we went the other day, but a temporary culvert's been put in so you can actually drive up on the side. I was out there the other day. It was before we got the rain this weekend, and I will say it took me 2 times through a car wash to get all the dirt
Yeah,
off of everything. But it's much easier accessible. And as we go forward, the road will continue to develop, and it'll be a lot easier to get in on the site. They're making great progress on the new bypass. The bridge is not coming along quite as quick as the rest of it, but we will have probably access from the south end very quickly.
Great.
Well, don't we already have access that was there, Arena Road? I mean, pretty much.
That's correct. I'm talking about asphalt.
I know.
Good access.
But-
And we also have an address. As of last week, County 911 assigned us 5200 Inzer Road is going to be the school address.
There you go.
So again, a lot of work has been done to get to this point. We're excited. Over the next couple months, we'll see materials start showing up, a job trailer, some construction workers on that site. And again, we have till August of 2026 where we'll be opening the doors. Any questions? We'll
Exciting.
get you out there, Ms. Ivanchek.
So we're on that 19th, we're going to turn
Shovels in the ground, yes,
That's exciting.
it is. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Superintendent?
Thank you, Dr. White. Thank you, Dr. White. Dr. Hale, if you'd come forward, and as he comes forward, Dr. Hale's going to talk through the legislative priorities. And as you know, in the past, Mr. Horton has led that venture, and this year, Dr. Hale led that venture and has done a great job. And I just want to provide some just information about what he's going to share. So first of all, as a senior staff, as some of my initiatives, speaking with FADS, the Superintendent's Association, the School Board Association, speaking with individuals such as you up here, we put together our legislative priorities. And the legislative priorities will be shared with you today, but we'll come back to you in December for that vote, so to speak. This year, you heard me say at the very beginning where public education has changed. And so we're taking this into 4 different areas. We're looking at student behavior policy reforms, education funding and resource allocation, deregulation and risk management. And we'll take these priorities to our local legislators as well as our state legislators. And we'll do some of those meetings on the phone, some in here locally, but we will also go to Tallahassee as well. As you know, we also have a firm who's working for us that will help push these legislative priorities to Senate presidents and others. And one of the things I want to say from the beginning is Dr. Hale's going to go through each of these. Feel free to stop him and ask a question, or even have words that you may want to add to it. But I'll say, as it pertains to the student behavior policy reform, and especially bullets 1, 2, and 4.
Well, Superintendent, can I just ask a question?
Please.
Did you say president? Did I hear that correctly?
Senate President?
Senate president. Okay. All right.
Sorry, Senate President.
I understand. Thank you. Okay.
We're not going to D.C.
Well, I understand there may be some reform afoot there too. So
It could be.
might keep it in mind.
Yes, sir. So on the student behavior policy reform, there's two things that I want to say at the very beginning. The first bullet is in essence in statute right now, and there's a presumption that educators act in good faith, and that's something that we want to reinforce to our local legislators. I've said this many times, the overwhelming majority of our teachers, staff, administrators, district staff that wake up every single day with the mind of how do I make a difference in the lives of students. And I think it is critical that we do have a presumption that educators act in good faith. Now, as Dr. Hale will say later, we have a process in place when that doesn't happen, and we take that seriously, and we go through that process with integrity. I also want to say, as it pertains to the second bullet that Dr. Hale will go through, we are blessed here in Okaloosa County that we have parents, family, community that supports our schools. And that's not always the case everywhere. But I will say that student behaviors are different. Student behaviors are more intense. Student behaviors can be more distracting and even volatile, not only here in Okaloosa, but across the state and across this nation. It's different. And we have to have strong partnerships with our parents, and partnerships where when these things are occurring, we're working together as a team in order to impact the student in a positive way. But not only that student, the other 18 or other 19 or other 20 students in that classroom. So you'll also see verbiage here where we'll make a proposal to the state where in instances where you do have volatile behavior, that there's a strong partnership between the schools and the parents also taking an active role in that student's behavior. That fourth bullet, you'll see, the state of Florida, they allocated mental health counselors. We want to see something similar for behavior experts, BCBAs, which Dr. Hale will talk about. And then there's other pieces where I'll chime in, but I just wanted to start this. But Dr. Hale has done an outstanding job of compiling what you see in front of you, but also compiling summary data that goes with this. He's done an absolutely outstanding job, and this is months and months in the making to get to where we are today. Dr. Hale?
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Good morning, Board. It's good to see everybody. I would like to just start off by saying that this is probably the third or fourth year now that we have put together officially some legislative priorities, and I would say that we have been very successful. This board has shown its proactivity. This superintendent and his staff has been able to not only look at the global condition in the state of Florida, but also the local condition and how these things apply locally to us. And your proactivity and your ability to get these out in front of legislature has proven dividends in the years past, and I'll articulate a little bit of that. But this has been a good process in the past, and we continue to want to make good changes legislatively for our students and our teachers. A little bit of the considerations that we went through while we were putting this document together. First of all, when you see that first bullet there, current educational environment, that's exactly what I was speaking to. we have a very unique condition across the nation, across the state, across Okaloosa County, with some unique needs for support. Different than they've ever been before. Some are behavioral needs, some are recruitment needs, some are financial needs, some things that we are just seeing that are impacting our day-to-day in the classroom that we are considering while we're putting these legislative asks together. Also, the job market. You know, we are better in terms of vacancies this year than we were in years past. That, again, that's due to some of the reforms that the legislature has made that we, through your actions, have placed in front of them. We've gotten better, but we still have vacancies out there. It's still hard to find employees. We've got a job fair coming up December 16th. That's a little plug. Take my opportunity in front of the microphone to say that we're going to be actively recruiting still in December for vacancies out there. So there are still some needs out there that we'll address as we go through the presentation that kind of informed these legislative priorities. Also, our local representation, and by that I mean specifically our local representatives in Tallahassee. They listen. They meet with us. They listen. They put the Okaloosa flavor on it, and they get it in front of their colleagues. And we have had a lot of good success in building those relationships with them, and we want to continue to do that. And that's one of the things that's going to be manifested in the coming weeks and months as we get these in front of our representatives so that we can push this through as well. Also, I reached out to the Florida School Boards Association, FADS, FISBIT, and other organizations to kind of triangulate to make sure that we were not acting counter to what they are asking for, and there's a significant overlap with Okaloosa County and the different state organizations with the identifying of needs and how to resolve those needs, and you'll see that bear out in this presentation as well. And frankly, we also considered the fact that we have really made inroads in the last several years. Everything from some of the recruitment and retention efforts that we've made. We've gotten some different pathways to certification that the governor and the legislature have been able to push through. We've also been able to see an increase in our minimum salary each year. We are very grateful for those things, but those are successes that are directly tied to us and the other districts pushing forward and saying this is what we need. We were able to not only increase the drop window, but also the population that can extend their drop. Lots of big movement in past years with regard to retirement. Speaking of retirement, we were able to get the year waiting period before you could come back in retirement down to 6 months. We'd like to see it down to 0, but we are grateful for whatever we get. I mean, now we've got teachers that are retiring and wanting to come back, and they don't have to wait as long to do that, so that's a success.
And Dr. Hale.
Yes, sir.
And you look at the drop and the added 3 years, and what I'm about to say is not just my advocacy or this school district's advocacy, but I think it impacted it. And when they were looking at the extra 3 years, they were only looking at teachers, which is important. And we said teachers we're very grateful for the extra 3 years, but we think, at least in education, it's so important for our support staff and our administrators as well. And at one point, I thought it was just going to go forward with the teachers. And I'm sure there's other superintendents and school boards across the state that also advocated for that, but I felt very good of talking to someone who was a decision maker, and we were able to be a part of that going to all employees. And of course, it ended up going to state employees as well. But at one point, it was just going to be teachers. So I think it reiterates the need to advocate for our school district and for our employees.
And one other big success, Mr. Chambers has already alluded to it, but when we went in front of the legislature last year and asked for increased funding and support of the mental health needs that we are seeing around, among our students, that was something that was actually pushed forward this year. And so similarly, we're asking for some behavioral supports in the form of BCBAs or additional funding specifically for those things as well. So these are the considerations that kind of inform the priorities that we have this year. Everything from the partnership and the information gathering to kind of leaning on some of the things that the legislature's done in the past on our behalf to kind of put together these priorities that you have in front of you. As Mr. Chambers said, they're identified in 4 different categories: student behavioral policy reforms, education funding and resource allocation, deregulation, and then storm preparedness are the four big categories that we're focusing on this year. And if you look at your student behavioral policy reforms on your sheet there, as Mr. Chambers said, I'm going to literally go through each one of them. They're generalized on the screen there, but you have the actual words right in front of you in that sheet of paper. The first one is to amend 101505 of the Florida statutes to reinforce the presumption that educators act in good faith when addressing student behavioral issues, shielding them from personal liability unless clear and convincing evidence proves otherwise. And we do have a process, just like Mr. Chambers said, for making that determination. We have investigative processes that are very, very tight and that get to an end. But we want to always begin with the presumption of good faith efforts. That is statutory, but we would like for that to be a little more reinforced with some language, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily feel that way to the teachers. So that's one of the things that we're asking for.
And I just want to add there, we always say that student safety is first and foremost, and that absolutely is the case. And it goes back to what I said earlier on this bullet. The overwhelming majority of our employees come to work every single day to do good things for students. However, in instances where that does not occur, we absolutely go through a process, and if in fact something goes against what was just stated in this bullet, we hold folks accountable. But I think we're blessed here where we want to have a climate where student safety is first and foremost, but we also want to support our educators, but also hold them accountable if things don't go as they should.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. 100%.
I'd like to
Yes,
say
ma'am.
something about that, if you don't mind. One thing that I think in the public, when we talk about, okay, we talk presumption of good faith, but sometimes things don't go the way we want them to. We do have some incidents that aren't well, but one thing that I get from the public is the sense that we're not being forthcoming about when things don't go well, that we're not putting that out there. But what I think they don't understand is the legal rights of the employee, also the anonymity of a child that might be involved in that, and those things that by law and ethically would be right, that we cannot put out in the public. And oftentimes, I see through social media that kind of runs our world that we're holding back, that we're just trying to push it under the rug and all that. But I think this would be a good time to say that that's not the case, but that we must follow those procedures legally and ethically until legal procedures have gone through and everything is sorted out. So I just want to make that statement that, it's not that we don't accept that sometimes people do the wrong thing. We're all human, whatever happens, but that it's not our place to put that out there as a public forum.
That's right, and I do appreciate that comment. We are bound by privacy rights and investigative considerations and concerns, and we're not, we don't have the same ability to just go out there on social media and say whatever it is that comes across our desk. But to Mr. Chambers' original point, to characterize this district as anything other than overwhelmingly blessed by great teachers and great staff members, that would just be a fallacy, because we do. We have wonderful people, but then the people that do go awry, they are absolutely held accountable. There is no district in the state of Florida more transparent than this one. We provide what we can and are legally able to do, and that which we don't is because we can't. And there's some very strict laws and regulations that kind of guide those things, so I do appreciate you saying that.
Right, Dr. Hale, and when you talk about those guidelines and so forth, goes without saying that we are in a litigious society, and we have to be so careful and so cautious in what we say or even what we don't say. I've learned a few things in these last few years about depositions and testimony and all those kinds of things, and even some new terms that I'd never heard or didn't understand, like exculpatory evidence. And the attorney could speak to that far better than I can. But that often also impacts what we can say or can't say about particular matters, knowing that very often these matters go in an entirely different direction to include the court systems.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So the second one there says to statutorily delineate the parent's role in addressing their child's behavior in school by encouraging prompt intervention and collaboration between parents and schools in cases of early warning indicators or recurring misbehavior, which may require progressive measures, including referral to community mental health or social services. This priority of ours is to basically seek partnership with the parents. As Mr. Chambers said, we're in a new era in education. This is not the education of yesteryear, and we do seek partnerships with parents in situations where we have these recurring behaviors. And so we would like for the legislature to codify that in some way to provide guidelines for that type of a partnership, where we share some of the responsibility and they share some of the responsibility. The third bullet is to amend 1006-07 Florida statutes to grant school districts the authority to extend alternative placement or expulsion of students in cases involving weapons charges, credible threats of violence, or unresolved safety concerns, ensuring the protection and security of students and staff. The bottom line is that right now there are guidelines, there are restrictions that we do not have the ability to get around when maybe an issue is not completely resolved. Sometimes there's some dangerous students that come back to school when there are still unresolved issues out there. And so we are looking for the statutory help to give the superintendent and this board the ability to have an exception for unique circumstances where a student's not ready to come back in the interest of student safety, and not just his own, but those around him as well. So we're asking that from the legislature.
And then I would add there, when you have a student, and this is just one example, and not necessarily an example here for Okaloosa, but when you have a student who makes a threat and then once looked into by the sheriff's department and there's concern, there should be a mechanism, there should be a way to ensure that that particular student, especially in today's era, where we have every recourse, where we have the expulsion timeline that's dictated by the state, but even the ability to go beyond that timeline in extreme and extenuating circumstances.
As Mr. Chambers said earlier, our primary concern is for safety, and that's the safety of all students. And so if those safety concerns exist, we would like the latitude to be able to extend the time away.
Well, I'd say safety for our students, but also for our teachers, our staff. I mean, we have to protect them. They're right in the line of fires, and that's a bad term to use there, but again, we need to look after our employees.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
So
you.
on that bullet point, you're trying to amend the authority to the school district or the school board on that one?
In essence, that would be a recommendation of the district to the school board. So if it's expulsion, the school board would make that.
Right, so you're asking for the district to have the capability of asking the school board to approve that should you move in that direction. And I just add that from my limited understanding from many, many years ago, this might be an example of one of these items that ought to go to the federal level, because some of this is stipulated by various ESE laws, if I remember correctly, if that's still the case, and particularly with the ESE students, and how we react to that. And so the legislature in Florida often will mimic what the federal government says, and Mr. McInnes knows far better than me. We are sometimes limited in what we can do, not just by state law, but by federal law.
You're very accurate, Dr. White.
All right.
Okay, thank you. So the next bullet says to establish additional funding for board certified behavior analysts, or BCBAs, and behavior interventionists to public schools without reducing funds in other areas to address behavioral challenges, foster a positive learning environment, and to improve student academic and behavioral outcomes. So similar to last year when they increased the funding for the mental health resources, we're asking for some additional support in the behavior category. BCBAs typically identify and provide needed support for specific students in this area. They're experts in their field, so to speak, and there is a need for those in our schools. So that's what is kind of informing that bullet right there.
And I would say to this board, so I'd say across the nation, across the state, I know, and even here in Okaloosa, you have some students who throw chairs, who flip desks. You have some students who will hit staff or hit teachers across the state, across this nation. And we should not be in an environment where a teacher or a staff member is coming to school and has to fear of being hit. Now, there's certain programs that we have where we have students, when we're going to meet those students, we're going to love those students where they have certain disabilities, and some students are more aggressive than others. But even in those situations, our employees, after being trained, still shouldn't be in an environment where they're being hit. So I think this is critical. You think about teachers, they did not go to school and didn't get classroom management training in some of the behaviors that are being exhibited today across this country. And so these first four here, trying to help our teachers, help our support staff, help our principals. We're in a day and age now in our country where there's a teacher shortage. There's a bus driver shortage. There's a custodian shortage. It's education, but then go down to the business sector and it's there as well. But we have to do some things, and I talk about all the time, public education has changed. We have to recapture public education because I believe it's the best educational environment, in my opinion, for students and for families and communities. And so these efforts here to support our teachers and staff and administrators, I think, has never been more critical. And then also, if we're able to be successful in this, I think it can have a hand in us not having vacancies. Where we have about 33 vacancies, there's places where it's 100, 200, 300 vacancies. Not here in Okaloosa. But I think we have to do something to take a strong stand to support educators, but also understanding, at least here in Okaloosa, the overwhelming majority of our parents and communities support our schools, support our teachers and staff.
Superintendent, I appreciate you bringing this forward, and you haven't said, but it's just my assumption that the other superintendents, because I know you're involved in the Superintendents Association, feel the same way, and experiencing, I suspect, in many cases, far, far more of this than we are. But I appreciate what you're saying, that we're just not going to stand around and say we can't do anything when these kind of things happen, if they happen. And I appreciate the strong stance that you're taking, that we're just not going to tolerate that, to include criminal charges, because I think that's what I've heard, and I think that's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to say something to that. And so I'm excited to see these 4 points, because I do think that this right here could be a turning point in public education, because, as you've mentioned, student behavior is at the center of a wheel that affects so many different things in public education, from employment to the success of students. If a teacher is spending more time managing than teaching, our kids aren't getting what they need. So right here, this thing could be really the turning point of where our public education system is going. And we all know that if our public education system goes down, that's going to affect our society. Yeah. And not trying to be over dramatic, but it's the truth. Yeah. And we are at the heart of democracy. And I think this is so important. And it's interesting because the superintendent will tell you that I actually went to him and said how much I appreciated his statement that he made several weeks ago on threats to schools. And I, at that time, expressed my goal to do beyond that. And he said, it's coming, Ms. Ivanchek. And so I appreciate the work you've done on this. I feel like our legislators are going to get on board. And when they do, this will continue to make headway and to make a difference. And we're going, because if, as you said, if we don't do something now, if we don't stop what we're seeing now or make these changes, we're going to be in such chaos that we cannot take it back. So I think right here, if we did nothing else but get this going, we have really made a difference in public schools. So thank you.
And I so appreciate those words right there, Ms. Ivanchek, and Dr. White, and others may have thoughts. And so I'm going to say something that might not be popular, but I'll preface it with, again, I think the overwhelming majority of our parents do a fantastic job. But there's the very small percent that every school has, and when a student behavior is exhibited, the statements are, what did the teacher do? What did the principal do? What did the staff member do? With no accountability at all of what the student did. And again, this is a small percent, but every school has a small percent, and some of these small percents impact a large majority of time. And when you're dealing with situations that happen, and then the teacher or the principal receive choice words, which then exacerbates the situation. And so we want to be partners with families, from the student who never ever gets in trouble to the student who gets in trouble, and be able to work together so that that student can have success.
No, I'm good.
Anything else, colleagues? Well, and I know we don't have the old Florida performance management system anymore that we used to use to evaluate teachers, but those of y'all that have been around for a while well remember that one of the separate domains, one of the 6 domains, domain 2.0, if I remember, was management of student conduct. And what that research indicated is what the superintendent's saying, that if you can't manage student conduct, if teachers don't have the prerogative and the power to manage student conduct, there's not going to be any learning that takes place. And so that's exactly what I see, Superintendent, that you're trying to do, to put in place, to make sure that that can happen. That's all I've got.
Thank you. So we'll move to the next category, which is education funding and resource allocation. If you look at bullet 1 there on your sheet, it says to increase the FEFP, or the Florida Education Finance Program, funding to alleviate salary compression for support workers and to financially reward excellence among teachers at all experience levels, while advancing Florida's top-notch teaching profession by continuing to increase starting salaries. As I said earlier, we're very blessed in Florida to have an emphasis on the minimum teacher salaries. It continues to go up. Ours is right now $49,000, which is pretty good relative to the rest of the districts in the state. But what I would say is that one of the maybe unintended consequences of that is that we have been neglecting the more experienced teachers, because there's been no specific allocation for the 20 and 30-year teachers and things like that. As we raise the bottom, the top stays the same essentially from a starting salary standpoint, and that's called compression. It's happened with our support workers as well. When Florida instituted the $15 minimum wage, that raised a lot of our minimum salaries for the support group, but there was no money there to raise the top. And so what we're asking for through this is relief from that, so that we can reward our veterans as well, not just the people that are starting from a recruitment standpoint, which we are very grateful. Every help we can get for recruitment and retention is a big deal, but half of recruitment and retention is retention. And so we need to make sure that we can take care of those veterans as well.
And Dr. Hale said that very well, but this board, many of you on this board have said to me, well, what can we do for our more experienced teachers or our more experienced support staff? And this is what this is asking. We're very grateful that the minimum salary has gone up on both the teacher side and the educational support side, but as great a job as funding has come out to go from, for example, in our county, from 33,000 to about 49,000, we need the ability for that 15-year teacher, that 25-year teacher, that 20-year support staff to be able to do even better.
Well, and that's because, and we all know this, and we've all seen it, because prices have gone up. I mean, significantly. And to lock them into a wage that doesn't help combat the increase in those prices, we lose those folks, bottom line.
That's right. When the cost of living outpaces the increase in salary, it becomes a challenge.
Right.
And that, you're exactly right. You hit the nail on the head with that. So the next piece that I would be asking for, or that we at Okaloosa would be asking for, would be an increase to Safe Schools funding to fully support staffing for safe school officers in every public school. Additional funding should also support broader school safety initiatives, including capital improvements to ensure a secure environment for students while on school property. Make no mistake about it, the state has an emphasis on safety. We have an emphasis on safety, and we do appreciate the additional funding that we've gotten over the many years. However, and Okaloosa is different. Now, each district chooses how they're going to manage the safe school officers. We choose to partner with the Okaloosa County Sheriff's Department. It's been a great partnership, but the allocation from the state is not sufficient to cover our needs in that regard in terms of paying for that. There's additional cost, not just with the initiation of capital improvements, but the ongoing maintenance of capital improvements. Safety is a big deal. It's going to continue to be a big deal. More cameras, more gates, more infrastructure, better funding for officers. As costs continue to rise, as you said, that's going to be an ongoing need. And I know Mr. Dean is here today, and he would echo those sentiments, because you can't ever be safe enough. You know, there's more to be done, and so we would ask for additional support in that area.
I'll just comment on that, just from the state organization side of it, is that I hear from other districts that aren't in the same boat that we are. You know, we are very fortunate that we have a county commission that helps fund this, as well as the school district, and that we have a great partnership with the school district, or with the sheriff's department. But there's other counties across the state that don't have that. They don't even have SROs in every class or every school like we do. So it's a challenge. But something was said over the weekend on one of the news stations, and was talking about safety. And the gentleman said, at what price is safety? Do we put a price tag on safety? And you can't, right, because it's always going to be something that is something that is going to be tied into education, and it's never, there's not a price tag on it. Safety is what we strive for here, first and foremost. So
100%, I appreciate that comment, but you also said one other thing that I think is important to highlight as well. These are Okaloosa's priorities going forward, but there are other districts that stand to benefit from the things that we are able to get through our legislative actions as well, just like we're able to benefit from some of theirs. And that's one of the areas that I think we would all hold hands together and say, this is what we need, is additional safety money. So I do appreciate that comment, because sometimes we get in our Okaloosa mindset and we forget about our neighbors to the west, east, and south of us that would also benefit from that. So I appreciate that perspective.
And I'd say the school board, so there's infrastructure to safety, and then there's also personnel to safety. And I'll just say this just quickly and simplistically. So Danny Dean and his staff wake up at whatever time they wake up, but their day starts at 7:30 and it's, quote, over at 4. And it's 6 o'clock, they're on the phone with the sheriff's department. It's 10 o'clock p.m., they're on the phone with the sheriff's department. It's 2 a.m. and something has happened. So it's a small staff that works meticulously. and coordinates with entities to be able to work to keep our schools safe. So just in that, when I say small area, which is not small, but just that in itself is, any help can be, would be greatly appreciated.
So if we'll move on down to the third bullet, the increase, this is for an increase in the base student allocation to provide sufficient and sustainable funding to allow for delivery of a world-class education to all students, while also providing additional budgetary flexibility so that the school district can effectively and efficiently use resources to meet local needs. This funding increase and additional flexibility will allow school districts to address increased costs related to student transportation, teacher recruitment and retention, textbooks, insurance, cybersecurity, school safety, innovative academic strategies for low-performing students, and just general inflationary pressure. As you mentioned earlier, Dr. White, the cost of living is just going up. And we need help. Our textbooks are grossly underfunded. Our transportation needs continue to grow. Even just from our insurance standpoint, things like premiums, things like evaluations of our capital projects, all the different things are just going up. And so when, we're not an entity that can sell our product for more, right? We are limited in what we are given each year. And so when everything around us rises, the cost of doing business goes up, we need a commensurate raise to our budget to offset those things. That's what I'm referring to when you see on the chart there, other economic impacts. There's no way to articulate everything that's going up on a slide because everything is going up. And so we need some additional help with that as well.
Well, the word I liked really in this is flexibility, because I've always said that if the state would allow us to look at our district and the needs of our students in our district and let us make decisions, us meaning all the stakeholders in our area, rather than giving us so many categorical pieces, that things would come out much better, that we could do. So I like that, it's asking for those budgetary flexibility that, I know that certain things have to be mandated, but really, if we're elected, if we're put in positions, then, give us that flexibility to use our skills and knowledge and input to do what's best for our students here in Okaloosa, which cannot be the same as Miami-Dade in everything. So that's what I'm hoping that might come out of this too.
Absolutely. There's no doubt that there's no such thing as a cookie cutter district. Every single district has different priorities, different needs, different students, different families.
And the funding should go along with that.
Right, and that would actually probably be better categorized under deregulation.
Yeah.
Which is, sometimes you got to pick a category.
Right,
but,
sure.
But that is also an emphasis, as you'll see when we move into the next one, is we'd like to have our own individualized decision-making in a lot of areas, so I concur.
Exactly.
The last bullet under the education funding and resource allocation has to do with the voluntary pre-kindergarten, the VPK, and it's asking to increase the voluntary pre-kindergarten based student allocation to ensure the sustainability of standalone VPK programs accessible to all families, allowing every child the opportunity for kindergarten readiness. Here's the bottom line. Students need some preparation before they hit our schools. Any type of training prior to kindergarten is going to only benefit us in terms of their academic sufficiency, their behavioral and cultural expectations, the way to act around people, their social norms. All of those things are necessary, but right now the VPK program is underfunded. It just is. And so we would like to not only increase the percentage whereby which a student can receive funding, but just increase the width of students that can actually be in there. There's a lot of deregulation involved with that as well, but the primary ask is for just enough money to sustain a viable program.
Well, and this is where I'm going to get on my soapbox for a moment. And I also pulled up the Florida School Board Association. We received an email the other day with their platform, and since I have the president sitting right here, I've just never been able to understand as an educator why we do not support and fund especially with the overwhelming evidence we have that early intervention is so important. And I know in the Florida School Board Association platform I'm sharing, it stated that 77% of our children who successfully complete a VPK program demonstrate kindergarten readiness. And I looked back at the beginning of this year, and I love looking at data. When we have schools that these 5-year-olds are coming in, and they're 75% of these students are not kindergarten ready, what a disservice we have for these children. And again, I'm going to go back to when I was working in the district, a problem that we had when we talk about a full-time program, and I know when we talk about a full-time program, what exactly are we talking about? Because in the past, a full-time program was like 3.5 hours maybe. Well, our programs were never really able to grow because we didn't provide transportation. These are parents that are working parents. They can't come at 10:30, 11:30 to pick up their children, so they chose to work to take their child to programs that were maybe like a network, a child care network, or a service, as far as child care. So our programs were not able to grow because, again, transportation. So I'm so thrilled that the district is looking at this, but then also our school board association is looking at that. I hope they're looking at the big picture of how we can help these parents, again, with, if we're talking full-time, is that going to include transportation, exactly what it's going to involve? But I still just don't understand how, with the overwhelming evidence, how important it is for early intervention, that we as a state have not supported this. Go figure.
Yeah, I would just comment that with the parents you're talking about having child care services where even the businesses that provide child care services can't help as much as they used to because they're running into the same problems we are, finding qualified help to run those businesses. And I know looking at VPK, we totally agree that the data's there. I mean, the data shows that if, we get them in there, it's going to help them. And this will also, like Ms. Ivanchek was saying, maybe the behavioral issues won't be as great because they're already they're going through that process of teaching them how to behave in school. But I know in Georgia, when my oldest son, started school there, they did a VPK 4 program. He was 4, and they went the entire day. They started with the regular kids and they ended with the regular kids. Now, it was a neighborhood school, so there was no transportation issues because we live right next door to the school. But I would say that, again, it's an investment for the future, and like safety, what's the price tag on it,
Well, and I'm going to say I do appreciate that. I know Mr. Chambers and Sheila, we've started those programs where the kindergartners can come in, a couple of weeks early, so they get used to the routine, how to walk in line, and they're ready to start. But 2 weeks, that is wonderful. We're providing the funding for that. But again, overwhelming evidence right there. I do, again, appreciate that the district sees the need and provides what we can provide. But, all students should start at the same starting line. And these students that are coming from areas that, again, they're not kindergarten ready. There are, again, in our district, 75% of our students are starting back here, whereas the starting line is up here. So I do think, Sheila, I know you and Mr. Chambers with the funding, how important that is. In the past, we were able to, because we did see our programs, parents are not able to come pick them up at 10:30, 11 o'clock. That, I think we used title money maybe.
We do.
We were allowed to put some money in there to keep the students longer throughout the day. So our district has always been able to make as much of an effort as we can. Title money goes so far and it keeps getting cut. So again, I do want to recognize that our district has seen the need, making the effort, but it needs to come from the state. And again, I just don't understand where, and thank the School Board Association. I made highlights and notes and things and you'll have my number. You can call me anytime you want to I'm happy to get on my soapbox with this.
Well, I appreciate the comments, but you've identified the exact reason we're asking for more. I mean, we are hearing you loud and
Yeah,
clear.
parents do use the different daycare centers because they do offer the VPK program the first part of their day, and then the students are able to stay at that daycare program. And again, that was a reason our programs didn't seem to grow. Just, again, just couldn't help the parents out.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to the next section, it says to reduce regulation in public schools or deregulation. We've already acknowledged the budgetary deregulation emphasis on the prior bullet. But we do ask to continue the deregulation efforts for K-12 public education and provide public schools with the flexibility similar to that afforded to charter schools and other school choice options receiving state funding. And so what we would like to do is acknowledge the efforts that the legislature's made over the last several years and just ask them to keep looking for relief. Anything that they can do to make our teachers' jobs easier or our district staff's jobs easier so that they can actually get to the business of teaching would be appreciated.
And here again, I can't help but throw this in, but some of this is, of course, at the federal level. And if what we're hearing materializes, you may have significant deregulation at the federal level that, quite frankly, may turn into be a real asset for the superintendent and Ms. Lightbourne and her department. We'll have to see.
So the next bullet, from this particular standpoint, deregulation also includes the certification burdens upon teachers. And so we would like to continue efforts to remove overly burdensome certification requirements for teachers and administrators. Now, one of the things that I did while I was compiling all of this information is I asked Mr. Ron over there in Student Services to put together a hypothetical first-year teacher and all the certifications and trainings that person might have to go through. And so just as an example, let's talk about we're getting a lot of temp certs, career changers. So we're going to start with them. Someone who is teaching an elementary CBS class but has a temp cert in social studies. Okay? So in the first year, that teacher would be out of field and have to take a subject area test. They'd also be out of field and have to take an ESE certification test, would have to earn the reading endorsement, would have to earn the ESOL endorsement, would have to attend new teacher orientation, would have to complete professional education competency program, would have to participate in the school-based mentor program requirements, would also have to have additional evaluations and such because the consulting teachers and that group has to do evaluation elements on top of what the principal would do, which is doubled for a normal teacher. A principal would have to do even double over what a normal teacher would do. They would also have to take their professional prep classes to include the PLCP and up to as many as 5 college classes. They'd have to take the general knowledge test, the professional ed test, and through the evaluation system with their principal, they'd have to do the IPLP, used to be called the IPDIPI, the walkthroughs, the 2 administrative observations, the 1 CT observation. They'd also have to do enough PL to start working towards their recertification points. They'd have to do their ESC and SIS trainings, the youth mental health, the mandated reporter training, all the different things like that, and on and on and on and on. And that's our, what I would call our most vulnerable teacher. The one that decided to change careers.
And they still have to teach students.
And teach.
And the salary's $49,000 because they're first year.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
So, again, we've done a lot in the state of Florida in the last several years to make getting into the teaching profession easier. The various certification pathways, the pathway for veterans, the pathway for first responders. There's some new programs coming down. I'm not ready to unveil in front of you guys, but some things that can kind of maybe scholarship, so to speak, some support folks into a teaching program and things like that. But once you're in, it's tough, man. It's tough.
Yeah. So how is that affecting? I know you've done some very innovative things with the superintendent's guidance and ultimately this board's agreement in bringing in some folks to teach for us that maybe had residence in another country. Are they having to do all this same stuff too, or?
plus their immigration visa stuff and all that too. So,
Amazing.
yeah, so the good news
And they still
is,
took the job.
well, and the good news is the
Yeah.
group that comes to us, a lot of the certification stuff is done in order to just be in the program.
Ah,
But
okay.
the first year stuff and the
Okay.
state required stuff and the visa stuff is still
Yeah,
on
yeah.
top of them. But they don't have quite as long a bridge as you would think because they
Okay.
do come kind of plug and play
I see.
for a lot of those things.
Okay.
But to your point, Dr. White, at least here in Okaloosa, we would have, there wasn't necessarily a need to go to that outside organization. And now, where we are today, with many of these requirements being a contributor, now we are going to outside organizations.
Well, I'll just say, and I don't talk about it much, but I was out in 3 schools last week and talked with a couple of those principals that have employed some of the individuals and went to one of them's classroom. And they're very happy with the job and the work that they're doing. And I saw it firsthand, and it was quite impressive. So thank you for doing that, because it helped fill some of those vacancies that we just weren't being able to fill. And they're very happy with their folks, so that's good.
Thank you for that. It has been very successful, and we will continue to partner with that group
Good.
as we move forward.
Good.
I would say one thing, the example that I gave you, I call our most vulnerable teachers, our temp cert folks. And just so that you know, that's pretty much the standard hire across the state right now. The educational programs are not turning out the same amount of certified teachers that they want, that they used to.
Well, they're not getting the students.
That's right. That's right.
People aren't going into education.
And so I would
And,
just-
and with all this, you have to wonder why.
Exactly.
Right.
And just for your information, this hiring season, to this point, 41.9% of all the teachers that we've hired are career changers.
Yeah, of course.
So
Wow.
almost half,
Well, on
which is
top,
actually down from last year.
on top of all the requirements, just the cost of every time you said test a few minutes ago,
that's right.
the cost of the individual that's having to pay for those tests, it adds up. And 49,000, and what is it, $75, $100 more to keep taking these tests?
That's right. Every time they take it.
A lot of work and a lot of money.
So that's the bullet number 2 there. Specifically, one of the things we'd like to address through bullet number 3 is to remove or revise the reading renewal requirement for recertification that was added to just a variety of teacher certifications, but specifically the ESE group, which is an area of specific scarcity that's already burdened by excessive requirements for being considered in-field. As you'll recall, last year we discussed this, and we'll kind of reiterate that with the next bullet, where we're asking for an integrated curriculum certification, because anybody that's got a self-contained class is out of field if they don't have a certification for every single subject that's taught during that class during that day. So if you teach math, English, social studies, and science in a self-contained environment, then you have to have a math, science, social studies, and English certification in an ESE classroom. And right now, Mr. Chambers identified, we have 33 vacancies right now, which is about 20 better than we were at this point last year, but half of them are ESE. So it's a struggle to find those folks. It kind of crosses over with some of our earlier conversations that we were having back with the student piece also. So it is a challenge, and so we would like some relief there.
Well, and I just don't think if the legislature and the community and the folks on the outside really understood what that means. That we have take a varying exceptionalities teacher. And so they have self-contained, and they teach those kids things like life skills and things like that on how to get around and to get along in the world. But all of a sudden, the principal walks in there and says, well, no, you're going to have to be certified in 4 areas: language arts, social studies, math, science. And you're going to have to take the middle school test for those subjects.
And the ESE test.
Yeah, well, that one, they might can tolerate that one because that's their field. But when you hit them with those content areas, subjects that at the level they're teaching is probably not at the middle school level, quite frankly. But now all of a sudden they have to pass that test, which, let me say this now, it's not easy.
That's right.
Okay? So now they have to go back, they have to study, they have to bone up and study all those different things and pass all 4 tests on content that they may never even broach. That's a tall order.
Yes, sir.
That's a tall order.
Appreciate that comment. And again, the next bullet is just dovetailing onto that. Additional relief for those exact teachers is to reinstate an integrated curriculum certification for middle school ESE teachers and expand the certification to high school ESE teachers to offset the requirement that we were just talking about for the various
Good.
Yes.
subjects. So the last category is risk management / storm preparedness. As we've seen over the last several hurricane seasons, there have been districts around us that have gotten decimated by storms.
Yeah.
And so we're just asking, in a nutshell, for preparation in advance of these storms coming from the legislature. The first bullet says to enact legislation which will annually fund the first $25 million of each individual Florida school district's losses due to a named extreme weather event. Coverage of the first layer of losses will allow districts to obtain necessary additional layers of coverage at a greatly reduced expense and will result in net savings to taxpayers. Basically, that's asking for deductible help.
Yeah.
Because $25 million is a lot of money. And if we have to pay for the first $25 million when something comes through here, that's going to impact our budget significantly. And so we would ask for a little help from the legislature in that regard. And I know that FSBIT was all over that one last year and this year as well.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because our trust has had 2 hurricanes, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 6 of our trustees' counties have been affected by that, by both storms.
That's right.
So that is going to be a burden on us as a district because we are a part of that trust, even though we received no damage. It's going to be a burden on us. So this is why I know FSBIT is really behind this too, because it will definitely be a game changer for us if we can get that.
That's right. Like Mr. Bryant said, when the last couple hurricanes have moved right through that Big Bend area, that's over half of our trust members. And just because we didn't get hit doesn't mean we're not part of the team. And
Right.
so when their rates go up, they collectively go up. And so we'll see an impact from that. But who knows? We might be next, and then our deductibles are going to be they're going to use up other funds very, very quickly. And so again, just relief from the legislature in this area would just it's just put it in a pot and wait for it to go wherever the storm goes, right? So that's kind of the thought there. And then the next one, allocate funding to support school districts with the financial demands of disaster preparedness, emergency response and recovery, ensure resources for timely reimbursement of expenses incurred for operating emergency shelters, and providing essential services during crises. One of the things that we continue to hear from FSBIT and the experts is that it's better to have everything in place before the storm gets here than to try to get it once the storm passes through, not only because of supply chain, but things like budgetary timelines and trying to get bills paid, and heck, your payroll office might be demolished by the storm. All these types of things create lag time into getting school back operational, which is the point. So if we can have funding across the state, again, just to follow the storms, to have the stuff in place before it gets there, that would be to our advantage. And so that kind of informs that priority.
And I personally think that because Florida has done such an incredible job of hurricane preparedness before the actual storm hits, I don't understand why that would be, something we're fighting for all of our municipalities, for all of our counties to be on top of that. And but again, we're fortunate because our governor has taken a priority at the state level, to make sure we're on board, recovering quick or being prepared before the storm. So I'm hoping this would be something that would help us prepare, not just relying on FSBIT for everything, but for us just as a county. So
absolutely. So that concludes my presentation. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them, but I would just reiterate once again how much I've appreciated over the last 3 years watching this board's kind of innovative get ahead of it mentality, and looking at the concerns locally and across the state as well as we try to put these priorities together. And I do think it has had an impact, so I do appreciate your input and you're listening to these things. And of course, again, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Dr. Hill, I have something real quick.
Yes, sir.
Great job. I've marched the halls in Tallahassee trying to do legislative work, and you have 14 legislative priorities, and you can split these, you can break them in 2 different groups, the funding legislative and the non-funding legislatives. I would go in at the district, I'm not asking for it now, but you need to prioritize those in your head, especially the funding ones. Because when you get there, and the firm will tell you, it's all about compromise and this, you can't get everything, but so go in there loaded to bear on what's more important to you.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be tough choices, but.
Appreciate that. No, that makes total sense.
So if I can comment, first of all, Mr. Heinley, I appreciate those comments because this was something I was going to piggyback off of what you just said. But first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Chambers for his leadership. I will just say that being the legislative liaison for our school board has been an incredible experience. And just like Mr. Heinley said, when you go to Tallahassee, it's very interesting. And he's right. You need to go in there prepared what's most important. I will say that over the last couple of years, the school board has done a lot of things that I think have helped our district get some of these legislative priorities implemented for our district. But the most important piece that we now have is that we have a legislative professional who is going to be guiding us. And I have asked Mr. Chambers' board that when we do go to Tallahassee, I've asked him that we go to Tallahassee as a board and the superintendent. Like Mr. Heinley said, if we're all in there together presenting this, it shows the board is together, the superintendent, hopefully that will help get some of this across the finish line for Okaloosa County. So I know in probably March, I think it is when basically everything starts happening in Tallahassee, but hopefully we can get our board together with the superintendent, with our legislative professional to help us get things across the finish line. That part I think is going to be a game changer for us this year. And I've also, asked Mr. Chambers, and again, this is something that really excited about, is getting our legislatures into the schools. So we are working on trying to get all of our legislators that represent us into a school visit, because we talked about what's our top priority, what's something that we can get, that we can focus in on and get them to relate. Because with the exception of Senator-elect Gates, I don't think any of them actually stepped foot in the classroom in their professional career as far as that was their job. Senator Gates was our superintendent at one time, so he has an idea. But that's what we run into in Tallahassee, is that a lot of these legislators, they mean well, but they can only focus mostly on what they are familiar with. And so when you go in there about education, if they actually haven't been into the classrooms or anything like that, to them it's just what they see on paper. So hopefully we're working on getting to where we can have all 4 of our legislators get into the schools and give them a tour. We've done this in the past, and I think it's helped. But I think that's really a positive step forward. And also having this legislative platform like you have presented to us is, again, I think it shows that we're all on the same page. And the more school districts come together with the same priorities, I think that will help get things passed this year. The good thing is that our current state representative president, his focus isn't going to be on education like some of the others in the past. I know last year's president, Senate President Pasadomo, she was really big about deregulation, but she was, getting some pushback from the representatives. So we got some stuff done, but not everything. So I'm hoping this year, with maybe not the focus being on education, we can get some other things done, because it's not necessarily a hot button topic this year. So.
Anything else?
All good? All right, thank
The
you.
last thing I'd say, Dr. White,
Yes, sir.
again, I think we're blessed here, and I think it's due to the work of this board. I know it's also due to the work of staff formulating relationships with our local legislators, but our Representative Rudman, Representative Maney, Senator Broxton, Senator Trumbull, and now Senator Gates, they've been great to work with. They take our calls, which we appreciate, and I think this upcoming legislative session, we're going to work hard with them, but also with other state legislators to try to get as much of this accomplished, and just appreciate this board's support.
All right, thank you, sir. Anything else, Superintendent?
That is it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, thank you. All right, so that takes us down to 13 board members' announcements, and so, Mr. Heinley, sir, I'll start with you.
Okay, I'll keep the tradition. Today is the 12th.
Zachary Taylor.
Wow. Okay, I have a new twist because, believe it or not, some people out there in our county watch these public workshops. So I was approached by a constituent, a young one, and said there's only 31 days in the month. So what do you do for the presidents after 31? So let's add 12 to 31, so that's the 43rd president. So who's the 43rd president?
That would be George Bush,
Which one?
the son,
You got it.
George W.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Heinley. Ms. Evanche.
Oh, I have to follow that. There you go. So, okay, a couple of things. I want to congratulate the Lady Gators volleyball, who went in the Final Four. Unfortunately, they did not come home with the championship they wanted, but I am so proud of these ladies. 3 years in a row, they have been in the Final Four. Last year, they were the reigning champs, so congratulations to Coach Medley and all those in the volleyball up at Gatorville. Also want to congratulate Principal Don Massey and Florosa Elementary for being designated a school of excellence for having hit the 80 percentile mark in 3 consecutive years. That's hard to do. Also want to congratulate a friend of our school district and a county commissioner, Mr. Mel Ponder, who has been chosen as the president of Northwest Florida State College. And he's worked with us quite a bit, and I was excited to see his the announcement that he has been chosen for that, because I know that he's going to work with us in the future. So that's exciting. Congratulations to Mr. Ponder. That's all.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Bryant.
I would just like to say, I know yesterday was Veterans Day, but to all of our employees that are veterans, we truly appreciate all of them for their service. And of course, you know, all of us that have loved ones that are veterans, we truly do appreciate it. It's always really a neat thing to see all of the ceremonies that go on in the schools to honor our veterans. And, you know, for those young ones to truly understand what our veterans have done or are continuing to do for our country, you know, I think that's very important. So, I'm always excited when we take an emphasis on things like our Veterans or Memorial Day, you know, things that highlight what our military has done and continues to do in our community. I think that's a big thing, because a lot of our students, they're children of veterans. So, I mean, a lot of our families have veterans in them. So I appreciate that we continue to do that. But happy Veterans Day.
And Mr. Bryant, of going out to a lot of these ceremonies, the military members who aren't necessarily from here, they say they're surprised that they see the magnitude of how our schools celebrate Veterans Day. So I think that's a testament to our principals, teachers, staff. That made me feel good.
Well, Superintendent, I'll take it a step further, and you're too modest to even mention this, but I will. I appreciated seeing on Channel 3 News all the different ceremonies that were conducted around at the school sites, and so I appreciate you and your staff for helping to put that together and letting that make the news so that our community knows when they watch news on Channel 3, WEAR, of all the wonderful things that we do to recognize the strong military presence and our support for them in our county. So thank you for doing that too. All right, Mr. Bryan, anything else? All right, Ms. Gardner?
Yes, thank you. I have a couple of different things, and since I started speaking about early intervention earlier, I just want to do a shout out to Jared Williams and Get the Coast. He is the online news publication. He does an excellent job highlighting things that are going on in Okaloosa County, and he's a great friend to our school district. But the other day, and I'm sure you've all seen it, and I hope more of the public, pulls this up and looks at it. But he did a focus on Miss Harvard, the teacher at Southside Elementary School, and her 3-year-old nonverbal autistic children. And what was highlighted was that these iPads that are helping these 3-year-olds communicate. Again, these are nonverbal autistic students, and I just can't imagine let me back up. I just can't imagine that being a person, especially that young, not being able to communicate. And I think that I know it brings on a lot of frustration. I appreciate that our district is providing those tools to Ms. Harvard, to Southside Elementary, Debbie Hahn's there now, not Debbie Hahn, Amy Bowles. I think she's absolutely amazing. I saw her face but couldn't pull her name real quick. But to see that video, to see the excitement these children now can communicate. They can say, I want this or I need that. Again, I truly believe it will help down the road with behavior problems, with frustration. But again, Jared has always been a friend of ours. But to think the teacher, I know that's going to be something our ESC department will grow. And as a parent who has a child with special needs, so wish these type of tools were way back when. And I know these parents are just thrilled. I can't even explain how excited and appreciative they are that this has been provided to their child to now communicate that of a need they might have. So thank you, district, Jared, ESC, everyone. Also, Mr. Chambers, you mentioned just a minute ago about the Niceville High School and Fort Walton Beach High School. They were named College Board AP School Honor Roll, and I just thought it was interesting that, and I was not aware of it, that one of the benchmarks that these schools have to meet is that at least 40% of the graduating students take an AP exam during high school, and 25% have to score 3 or higher on at least one exam. So 40% of these students have taken, again, AP is advanced placement. Also, I thought another important factor that the schools must also demonstrate that at least 2% of their graduating class took 5 or more of these AP exams. And these are not easy classes. They are not. We're talking advanced placement. And with one exam completed in either their 9th and 10th grade. So the rigor that we are providing to these students and these students reaching this is just absolutely amazing. So congratulations to Niceville and to Fort Walton Beach High School and to those students and those teachers who have provided the instruction to these students be able to perform at this level. And sticking with Fort Walton Beach High School, the boys swim team, they were district champions. They're headed to regionals. The boys and girls district cross country, boys and girls were the district cross country champs. And also to Fort Walton Beach High School, Michaela Sims. She claimed the first ever girls state javelin title. And if you see her, she's flashing around a state ring at this time. And also in my district, I had one of the top 3 educational support professionals, Damaris Padella. I don't know that. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She's at Elliott Point, and I look forward to the breakfast on Friday to recognize those 3 and to see who is the top on top of that. Who's the actual ed support person? That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gardner. All right, so that'll take care of item 13. Let's go to 14. That's public comment tonight, should there be any. And that's all I've got here in front of me. Is there anything else, colleagues or superintendent? Mr. Attorney, we're good there? Yes, and nothing from staff? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. A long one. Yeah.
Mr. Brown.
Did you get invited to the groundbreaking ceremony?
No.